Have you ever walked into your own living room and just felt like something was off, but you couldn't explain it? It's not messy, it's not loud. It's actually kinda beautiful, but still something in the air just feels weird, like the room is quietly holding its breath. That was Jessica, last fall, right before she found out the cool tribal decor she picked up in Peru was actually meant to guard tombs, not living rooms. She didn't know. She just thought it looked artsy. But her house, her money flow, her peace of mind, all felt jammed. That's the twist with Feng Shui. It's not just about where you place your couch. It's about the quiet things you let in, without realizing they're messing with the energy that holds your life together. Today, we're walking through 5 objects Jessica had in her home that looked harmless, but were quietly draining her Feng Shui energy, her clarity, and her ability to move forward. Some of them are probably in your home too. If this kind of wisdom speaks to you, if you've ever felt like you're doing your best to move forward, but your home keeps tugging you back, you're not alone. We're in this together. So feel free to hit like, subscribe, or even leave a comment below. It helps YouTube know you're part of this quiet shift. And we'd love to hear your story. You know what's wild? A broken guitar can sit in your living room for years and quietly become the symbol of everything you meant to say, but never did. The apology you held back. The dream you shelved. The version of you that used to be louder, but now feels like background noise. In Feng Shui, sound is life force. Music instruments, especially strings, drums, and flutes, are tools that move qi. But when they're broken, they don't just go silent. They block expression. They trap conversations. They turn a lively space into one that feels awkwardly quiet. And not the peaceful kind. More like walking on eggshells kind. Jessica had an old keyboard tucked behind her reading chair. The left speaker was blown out. It hadn't played a note in 5 years. But the energy in that corner? It felt like a conversation no one wanted to start. This is the quiet resentment trap, where things look fine but something's not sitting right. You feel misunderstood, unheard, and slowly, you stop even trying to express yourself. Jessica didn't realize how much that one broken keyboard mirrored how she'd been showing up in her own life. Holding it together on the outside, but not really playing her song anymore. It's like keeping a car in your driveway with no engine. It takes up space. It reminds you of places you wanted to go, but it's not moving. It's stuck, and now so are you. That's what broken instruments do to a home's energy. Even in psychology, items that carry unfulfilled intentions, like musical gear never used, create subconscious clutter. They activate guilt, should-have thinking, and even mild anxiety. Because your brain sees a task that was never finished every time you pass by. So here's what Jessica did. She gave the keyboard one last moment, lit a candle, placed her hand on it, and said, "Thanks for the music. I'm ready to clear the silence now." She took it to a local artist group who salvages parts for instrument repair. They loved it. And guess what? That corner of her room feels different now. Not just lighter, but braver. If you've got broken guitars, cracked drums, warped flutes, you don't have to throw them in the trash. You just have to stop letting them sit in silence. Donate, recycle, upcycle. Or if it means something, fix it and bring it back to life. But whatever you do, don't let the dead sound linger. Jessica jokes now that her living room used to be mute with attitude. Quiet, but not in a zen way. More like a teenager giving you the silent treatment. Now, she says the room finally talks back with warmth. And honestly, that's all Feng Shui's ever trying to do. Get the house to speak kindly again. If your space feels like it stopped singing, maybe it's time to tune your energy, not just your strings. It started with a vacation. Morocco. Jessica found a gorgeous woven mask in a street market. It looked powerful, mysterious. She didn't ask what it meant. She just thought, wow, this would look amazing above my couch. 3 weeks later, she couldn't sleep, kept having weird dreams. The room felt watched. She bought art, but she accidentally brought home a boundary her house didn't ask for. In Feng Shui, every object holds energy, especially spiritual ones. Masks, statues, beads, tapestries, incense holders. If they're used in ritual, protection, mourning, or invocation in another culture, and you don't understand their role, you're not just decorating. You're inviting a code you can't read. Jessica placed that mask in her relationship corner. She didn't know it was used in ancestral rites for separation and soul clearing. She just liked the texture. But every time she sat on that couch, something in the room felt emotionally cold, like a hug that didn't land. This is the meaning mismatch trap. You bring something home because it looks spiritual, but your space doesn't speak that language. So instead of protection, you get confusion. Instead of flow, you get noise. Jessica felt disconnected from herself, from dating, from even wanting to invite people over. It's like her house was whispering a warning and she didn't even know the words. It's like borrowing someone's wedding dress without knowing if they got divorced or widowed. Looks beautiful on the outside, but you're wearing someone else's story, and that story might not want to live in your home. Studies in environmental psychology show that items tied to unknown symbolism create subconscious stress. Your brain doesn't fully settle because it can't decode the object. Even if you think it's pretty, your nervous system says, something doesn't feel safe here. Jessica took the mask down. She placed it in a box, sat with it, and simply said, "Thank you for your beauty. I didn't ask your story. I release you with respect." She brought it to a cultural center downtown that actually knew its origins. And they were grateful she didn't just toss it. Then she saged the wall, added a small handmade art piece from her niece. No spirits, no confusion, just love. And the relationship corner? It started to feel warm again. She even had her first date in months, right in that living room. Jessica laughs now and calls that mask Mr. Don't Talk to Me. It looked cool, but it shut down her whole love life. Now she always checks what a symbol means before giving it wall space. And if it gives spooky priest vibes, it stays in the gift shop. Don't bring home a mystery and expect it to feel like home. If this reminds you of something in your own space, maybe that statue, that scarf, or that little shrine-looking thing you forgot the name of, this might be your gentle nudge to take a second look. If it doesn't feel right, you don't need permission to let it go. And hey, if you're into stories like this, feel free to like, subscribe, or drop a note. We read every comment, especially the ones that start with, "Okay, so I have this weird object." Jessica didn't even notice the plates. They'd been sitting in the cabinet for 8 years. White porcelain with a tiny silver rim? a wedding gift from a couple that didn't make it. And neither did she. They weren't broken. They weren't chipped. But every time she pulled one out, there was this strange echo of a celebration that ended early. The toast got old, and so did the energy. In Feng Shui, objects tied to broken relationships hold residual emotional vibration. It doesn't matter if they're clean. It matters what they represent. Those wedding plates? They carried the story of two people, and the heartbreak that followed. Jessica had more than just plates. A framed print from her ex's mom. A wine opener from a bridal shower she never attended. Even a vase from her own divorce that still had the thank you tag taped to the bottom. Every item whispered the same thing. Remember how it didn't work? This is the ghost of good intentions trap. You hold on to things because they were once given in love, but now they anchor you to pain. You feel obligated, sentimental, even guilty. So instead of clearing space for new connections, you keep setting the table for memories that aren't coming back. Jessica realized she was making tea in mugs that reminded her of people she didn't even speak to anymore. No wonder her mornings felt heavy. It's like leaving a framed photo of your ex by your front door, but pretending it's just part of the decor. Sure, it looks neutral, but every time you walk past, your energy gets rerouted through an old loop, and your present gets stuck replaying someone else's goodbye. Neuroscience shows that physical objects act as emotional anchors. When tied to unresolved experiences, they can subtly trigger mood shifts, from joy to tension to sadness, without you consciously knowing why. Your space becomes a museum of stories you didn't mean to keep. Jessica did a full relationship energy sweep. She went cabinet to cabinet, box to box, and asked one question. Do I want to carry this story forward? If the answer wasn't a strong yes, it went. Some she donated. Some she recycled. A few things she gave to mutual friends who still felt joy from them. And for one very specific casserole dish, she took it to the backyard, smashed it safely, and said, "Thank you for feeding a moment. You don't belong in my forever." Her kitchen felt weirdly bigger the next day, and she started cooking with music again. Jessica now jokes she runs a no-X energy kitchen. If a spoon has bad vibes, it gets demoted to the garage. Her new dinnerware? Thrifted, mismatched, full of character. Because she's not trying to match anyone's past anymore. She's setting the table for herself. Letting go of the plate isn't about the porcelain. It's about making room for a meal that feeds who you are now. It's funny how one ugly painting can change the whole energy of a room. Jessica had this one in her hallway. A gray-blue watercolor with stiff little trees. Her aunt gave it to her for her birthday. She hated it the second she unwrapped it, but smiled anyway and said, "It's beautiful," and then hung it up, right outside her bedroom, where she had to look at it every single day. She didn't hang it because she liked it. She hung it because she didn't want to hurt someone else's feelings. And somehow, that guilt became part of her space. In Feng Shui, decor is more than decoration. It's emotional broadcasting. When you keep art that doesn't resonate, your home starts to reflect someone else's taste, someone else's energy, someone else's voice. Jessica's hallway didn't feel like her. It felt like obligation, like compromise, like a quiet, awkward, okay, I guess I'll deal with it. And that vibe? It bleeds into everything. Self-worth, creativity, even rest. This is the silent surrender trap. You don't hate the thing enough to toss it, but you also don't love it enough to keep it. So you live in the middle. A soft, low-grade that colors your day in ways you stop noticing. Jessica started realizing she wasn't just tolerating the painting. She was tolerating herself in that space. And that's not Feng Shui. That's emotional furniture. It's like wearing an itchy sweater because your grandma knitted it. You're not comfortable. You're not happy. But you're too polite to take it off. Meanwhile, your body just wants to breathe. That's what happens when we keep art out of guilt. The home feels like it's holding in a cough. Psychologists call this emotional compliance clutter. It's when we hold on to things that go against our instincts, simply to manage someone else's feelings. But the longer you keep them, the more you internalize that your preferences don't matter. Over time, that takes a toll on your confidence and clarity. Jessica took the painting down on a Tuesday. No drama. No announcement. She wrapped it carefully, left a sticky note on the back. Thank you for being part of my home. It's time to let this wall breathe. Then she donated it to a local community center. In its place, she hung a small canvas she painted herself. It wasn't fancy, but it felt like her. And that hallway? Now it feels like a path forward, not a guilt loop. Jessica calls that corner the exercised wall, because it finally stopped judging her every time she walked past. She says now, if she's gonna hang anything, it better bring her joy, or at least not make her flinch. And honestly, that's a great rule for houseguests too. Your walls don't owe anyone politeness, they just owe you peace. Jessica bought a Tibetan singing bowl once. Brass, beautiful. It came with a tiny cushion and a wooden striker. She placed it on her meditation shelf, lit candles next to it, then never touched it again. Every time she passed by, it sat there like a stage that never opened, like a song that never got sung. And slowly, that shelf stopped feeling sacred. It started feeling heavy, quiet in the wrong way. In Feng Shui, sound tools are meant to move energy. Drums, bowls, bells, these aren't passive decor. They're activators. They're meant to shake stagnation and release stuck chi. But when they sit silent, they hold space for unspoken intentions. The "I meant to." The "I'll start soon." The "I'm not ready yet." Jessica had 3 items like that. The bowl, a bell from Sedona, and a tiny hand drum from a retreat she didn't finish. They weren't just collecting dust. They were holding emotional inertia. This is the unplayed potential trap. The tools are there. The desire is there. But the follow-through never comes. You walk past them and feel a micro-shame, a mini sigh. You start associating your spiritual space with not showing up. Jessica realized that shelf wasn't lifting her. It was quietly reminding her that she'd paused her own growth. It's like leaving running shoes by the door, but never going outside. Eventually, the shoes stop symbolizing motivation and start representing avoidance. Same with sound items. If they're not ringing, they're reverberating disappointment. Studies in habit psychology show that visible tools we don't engage with become subtle self-judgment triggers. Over time, they don't inspire us. They drain us, reminding us what we're not doing. In healing spaces, that can block confidence, clarity, and even physical energy. Jessica made a new rule. If it's meant to make sound, it needs to be heard. She rang the bowl. Once, then again. The tone was pure. She cried a little. Then she saged the shelf. Gave the unused drum to a friend who teaches music. And placed the bell in her front entry where she now rings it every Friday to reset the energy before the weekend. She doesn't call it a shelf anymore. She calls it her start again spot. Jessica jokes that for a while, her spiritual shelf had stage fright. Now, it sings. She says there's something oddly magical about sound that finally gets released. Like your house lets out a breath it's been holding for years. And the truth is, you don't need to be a monk to ring a bell. You just need to mean it. Don't let silence collect where your courage should have spoken. Sometimes the things that block our flow aren't loud. A painting we don't like. A gift we didn't choose. A drum we never played. They just sit there quiet. But we feel it. In the way we breathe at home. In the way we move through a hallway. In the way we start to think we're the problem, when really, it's the energy we've been tolerating. If today's episode helped you notice something you've been ignoring or quietly putting up with, that's a beautiful start. You don't have to fix everything at once. Just clear one shelf, or let go of one thing that doesn't speak kindly anymore. If this spoke to you, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Or just hit like or subscribe if you want more quiet shifts like this one. Next time, we're talking about the symbols we keep thinking protect us, but actually block our energy instead. See you there. Your space speaks. Wisdom listens.